Well, I've got 9:01. Mark, do you think we should probably get going?
We can.
All right. If you can bring anybody in that comes on after that. Just take a moment, if you would, and just review anything you feel necessary about using the Zoom.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate everybody joining. Would ask that everybody go ahead and mute just so we don't keep switching right all over the place. And we have a little bit of a special thing today for our national anthem. Tom, do you want to go ahead and...
I'm going to have Brent Harshman give us the invocation, and then I'm going to have you tee up the special. Brent, would you please lead us? But you got to unmute first.
Father, we thank you for the fellowship and common interests that bring us together at this time. And we ask your blessing on this meeting. As we seek to learn more of our history and heritage, keep us mindful of your presence in all that we do. Help us to be guided by your teaching. All this we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Brent. All right, Mr. Harrison, would you please?
Right.
No sound.
Let me breathe. Can you hear that?
Can't hear anything.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's my fault. I apologize. We'll start that over again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
for all.
O beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee. And crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
And now, RFD-TV and Rural Radio proudly begin its broadcast day with Market Day Report, produced in support of this nation's largest and most important industry, agriculture.
Thanks, Mark. How about the pledge to the Texas flag?
Yeah.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas.
Texas.
One state, under God, one,
and
indivisible.
indivisible.
We, the descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, solemnly pledge ourselves to defend against every foe. Thank you. Well, again, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here for the October Zoom meeting for the Dallas chapter of the SAR. That opening video, you're going to hear a little bit more about it because there's some stuff that have been developed around it, but I want to thank Brent Harshman for bringing it to us. He kind of discovered it, and we thought it was great, so that's why we wanted to add it to the meeting. Brent, thank you for your effort on that. Okay. This morning, Mark Harrison is going to give us an introduction for our morning speaker. It just happens to be someone that we've heard speak before, and I know you're going to love what you're going to hear. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Tom. We're honored to have today a compatriot from the McKinney Chapter, Larry Collins, who's going to be talking to us today about the Declaration of Independence. Larry, the floor is yours.
Okay. I can share a little bit more about myself. I'm a retired history professor and taught 40 years. And so McKinney Schools, Dallas County. In the last 23 years, I was at College, and I was their first full-time history professor. So we started off with about 1,000 students, and now we're about 50,000 students and multi-campus. But it's been very successful. And so I always enjoy the chance to get to make a talk about history, and certainly this. My talk, of course, is the Declaration of Independence. And why I enjoy history so much, I like to look at the personalities in history a lot of ways. So I'll be bringing this out in this talk. So let me put you the perspective where America is April 19th, 1775. The Battle of Lexington. And by May 10th, 1775, the Second Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia. You had a First Continental Congress before Lexington, but they adjourned, and now they're the Second Continental Congress. And this is going to be the government that runs America till 1781. So they have a lot of responsibilities. You're now in a revolution. You're taking on the most powerful empire in the world at that time, Great Britain. And so in this case, I always think it's interesting how they got this going, all these things coming together. As a matter of fact, you're going to have an army. And they start debating, maybe we need a commander-in-chief, got to get supplies, get manpower. There will be no draft in this one because it should be volunteer for the revolution. And so two people applied for the job to be the commander-in-chief. Now, one is very obvious. He is wearing a uniform in the Second Continental Congress. That's, of course, excuse me, that is George Washington. And so he has military experience. He's in the French and Indian War. Also probably helped he came from the South because most of the fighting in the Revolution had been in the North. And so they figured they needed a Southern leader. Oh, someone else wanted the job. He was very vain and glorious, and that was John Hancock. That'd have been a dilemma if we had had him. But the thing is, the story goes that Washington gets the job offer and accepts. I think Hancock just wanted it offered to him so he could turn it down. So as you see how this progresses. Putting you now on January 1st, 1776. And fellow turns out a pamphlet, so 500,000 copies. His name was Thomas Paine, and that pamphlet was Common Sense. Now, 500,000 copies, that may not seem a lot to you, but that's equivalent to about 8 million copies coming out as a bestseller, like a Harry Potter book or a note of history. And what was in this pamphlet, it was pushing for independence. and did something no one ever had done, hardly in print before, attack King George III. So this is moving around in people's minds. But June 1776, George is in charge of the Continental Army, but he's having a big dilemma. He's around New York, and the British are landing 40,000 troops, and they have a huge armada to come in there and crush the Continental Army and secure the largest city in the 13 colonies. And here is George Washington. And of course, he has a very small force. Where I always admired George Washington through this early phase is he was very good at strategic withdrawal. And it had been so easily to have been crushed because he did lose several battles, and he kept it all together. So it's very important. So now we're looking in June 1776, Continental Congress is meeting, and they need to do something pretty important by now because the Continental Army could disappear. And what happened was a fellow of the name of Richard Henry Lee. He makes a motion in the Second Continental Congress that a Declaration of Independence occurs against Great Britain. Now, you know how Congress reacts. Some of them wanted to immediately vote on this. Should this be unanimous? And they go back and forth. And naturally, John Hancock says, well, I guess we need a committee to study this problem. So, because you just couldn't immediately go ahead and vote on it because there was a chance this could be defeated. So you wanted to have some time, think it out, all this. And so a committee of 5 is created. And you guys, I'm sure you've been in committee projects with stuff at work, etc. And this is a great study in psychology when you look at this committee. For instance, you have John Adams. Now, John Adams could be obnoxious, opinionated, express his opinion, but full of energy and all these things. He came from Massachusetts, so he's from the North. Another person on this committee will be Ben Franklin. And Ben Franklin, I always kind of use him. He didn't get a college education, but the thing is, he had a lot of good common sense, great storyteller, and he had a good sense of humor. One of my favorite stories on Ben Franklin was, probably remember, he was his founder of Poor Richard's Almanac, and he had competition in Pennsylvania. So he started thinking, how can I beat the competition? So what happened was he got his almanac out ahead of the opposition in this case, and in his almanac he wrote the obituary of his competitor. So many people thought the guy died and didn't buy his book. So that's how Franklin started off with the Poor Richard's Almanac. I think that's shrewd marketing. But the thing is, fascinating man. But you're not going to find him as a big writer of significant things like the Declaration of Independence. And then you have some people that you may or may not be aware of. Roger Sherman, James Livingston. Livingston was from New York, and Sherman was from Connecticut. They're kind of quiet people in history. And then you come up with a guy who's hardly said a word in the Second Continental Congress. Very quiet man. The thing is, though, he was chosen. He didn't want the job. He was in his 30s, wanted to go back to Monticello, see his wonderful wife, get away from all this for a while. But he was convinced to do this. But so that was, of course, yours truly, Thomas Jefferson. So there's your committee of 5. And you know how it works a lot of times of committees. One person or two maybe do most of the work, and the other folks go along saying, oh, it looks pretty good, I like it. And that's, by the way, Livingston and Sherman. They're the kind of guys who would, whatever's produced, they'll go along with it. John Adams, you would figure he'd be having these ideas, this and that, and all these things. But he started thinking, my name should not be put on this, because he is probably one of the more unpopular guys in the Second Continental Congress. So turns out Jefferson accepts. And one thing about Jefferson, he was a very shy man. I know how he courted his wife, Martha. He came to her home several times, and instead of just blurt out the big question, he'd play the violin. He loved playing the violin. And also, here's an interesting point. You figure this man who's so brilliant, he could just really give you a great speech. Well, in 1801, when he became president of the United States, he whispered his inaugural address, and only 3 people heard him. So Jefferson has a lot in his mind and et cetera, and put things on paper, but he's a horrible public speaker. So we find that, so in this case, the guys, I guess they decided who is going to write this among the 5, and they all decided, Jefferson, you're the man. So they're going to have 17 days that he'll put this document together. And I guess the other guys are just having a grand time in Philadelphia, but he's doing the work. And so finally, as it turns out, let's see. All right. So on June 28th, the Declaration of Independence is ready, and the draft is, and for the Congress to approve. Written mainly, really all of it, by Thomas Jefferson. And so goes before the Second Continental Congress. He reads it, and interesting document. By the way, the original document is in the National Archives building in Washington, D.C. It's placed there in 1953. And when I was reading recently about it, we spent over $3 million to protect our main documents in history in the National Archives building. This is including the Constitution. These are original documents, a Bill of Rights, the treaty ending the Revolution, treaty ended World War II. So a lot of fantastic documents that are there. But you just can't walk up there and look in the glass and tap on the glass. Can't do that. Alarm system will go off. So what I was looking at here was, I told you Jefferson could be rather long-winded and pretty detailed. The document, as you look at it, it talks about the ideas behind the Declaration of Independence and what it means. I'm not going to read the thing all to you, just a couple of sentences, but those that you might be familiar with. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, Jefferson could write a heck of a sentence. The second one is remarkable, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the rights of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness, period. Whew. But he could write sentences. And the rest of the document is he explains all the horrible things that King George III has done to us. And in this case, called him a tyrant, blamed for just about everything in the world, but you had to have some kind of justification. Excuse me a minute, a little water here. And so this is pretty well the gist of it. But what's also fascinating, the future revolutions in the world, a lot of them will have declarations of rights of man, declarations of independence. So this sets a fantastic pattern for future revolutions in the world. Okay, we got it out there. And you can imagine when this is presented, by the way, we're looking at over 50 people, 50 men, and they're all going to have an opinion when this comes out. And they go back and forth about it, debate it, what should change, etc. And also they had made a decision with this, is this should be a unanimous vote for independence. This is not majority, not 2/3, unanimous. Now, think about this. What's the odds of getting Congress to agree 100% on anything? But at this point, they thought this is very important. This is for independence. All 13 should be behind this. So here it goes. And it goes from June 28th to July 2nd. July 2nd will be the day of the big vote. And there's 4 conflicts mainly, as I saw in this, on this debate. One was the problem of New York State. They seemed like they couldn't make up their mind what to do. The delegates from New York State said, we have not received orders from the legislature of New York State what we should do. They wouldn't seem like want to make a decision on their own. And so they go back and forth and debate. And then John Hancock suggested to them, why don't you just simply abstain and then wait till you get instructions? And by the way, they will finally approve the Declaration of Independence on July 15th. Kind of missed the date, didn't they? But they did abstain, so that's good. That's not a no vote. Then there's another state that had a problem, or a colony. I should say colony. They're not really states yet. Another colony. And in this case, one of the delegates was in Delaware, and he had cancer. And you had a delegation of 3 people, and they needed him to make it at least 2-1 because one delegate opposed independence. And what happened was they went out and they brought him back by July 2nd to cast his vote. And he, of course, supported independence. Caesar Rodney, his name is Caesar Rodney, who had cancer, noted person in Delaware history, but he will die in 1784. So he had some time to go with that cancer. Then there's that issue that always seems to be under the table, the slavery issue. And in this case, what happened was Jefferson had put in the document, remember I told you he wrote down justifications why independence should occur, and he blamed King George III for slavery and bringing slaves to America. It was all his fault, the tyrant. And then a fellow named Edward Rutledge of South Carolina, wealthy planter, said, by the way, the South will not support this document. You have the word slavery in it. We don't want to see this in the Declaration of Independence. Well, and it's going to be up to Jefferson for him to decide what to do with this. And John Adams, he is all furious, keep it in, because he opposed slavery. But Jefferson decided, and oh, by the way, Franklin's saying too, well, if you ever have a chance to really look at this in particular for entertainment, I watch this every year on Turner Classics, 1776. And they really do a good job. I like the singing, the music is just fantastic. And they follow their history very well with it. So in this case, Jefferson, and Franklin said, by the way, when we're long gone and dead, it really won't matter what happens. Let's just take the darn thing out. So it was taken out from the document. But then we got one more problem. It's got to be a unanimous vote. So all the states, I'll say states, I feel comfortable saying that. Really, there are states that become the United States. The thing is, what happens is you've got to get that last state to approve it. And the holdout is Pennsylvania. And the man who's resisting this, his name is James Dickinson. And he was adamantly opposed to independence. He was not a loyalist or a Tory. I guess at that day and time, you would call him a moderate, historians have. He really disappears in history after all this. But the thing is, he wanted some kind of reconciliation with the British. Things get worked out. Let's not have a revolution. That's mainly it. But he said he's definitely going to oppose it. And so it was all getting down to when they cast their vote that Ben Franklin, he wanted a roll call vote because he's in the Pennsylvania delegation. And so they start casting their votes. And here's James Wilson, no. Ben Franklin, yes. And then a very anonymous name to you, probably in U.S. history. He's a judge in Pennsylvania, but a very quiet man. And he was going to have to make the decision that would decide the fate of America. I don't want you to ever forget his name. He likes to be forgotten about. His name is James Wilson. James Wilson. And what happened was that was a smart move by Franklin, because one thing about James Wilson, he did not like to be the one that would decide history or something very significant. He likes to be one of those anonymous people. And so in this case, he decided one vote, he'll vote for independence. And all of you on the edge of your seat now. Unanimous vote, 12-0-1. The abstention, that's okay. And so they got it through. And on July 2nd, that's when it was approved. You could have argued we should have had independence on July 2nd. But on July 4th, it becomes official. John Hancock will put his big bold signature. A misconception a lot of times you get is you see all these men dressed very nice and appropriately. They line up on July 4th and sign the document. No fireworks, no Liberty Bells ringing. But you didn't have such a signing like that. This may surprise you, but a signing will occur, everyone that was present, on August 2nd. But it is official, July 4th, with John Hancock's signature. So we're okay. Let's keep the 4th of July as our Independence Day. But that's a little bit of history with that. On July 9th, George Washington will have the Declaration of Independence read to the Continental Army. Now they have a very strong reason of why they're fighting for independence. So it's now official. And a lot of ways, this is very important, because by declaring our independence, this now means where other foreign countries say, well, they're taking it serious. And later we'll get French aid. But as we look at this another way, the thing is, these men who ultimately signed this document have committed treason against the British Empire. And what can happen to a person who commits treason could be death, property destroyed, everything you have. And these are wealthy men. And so they took a lot of courage to put their name on the dotted line. And I'm going to share this with you. It's one of my favorite little books, written by Paul Harvey. And looking around the room, I see some people have heard of Paul Harvey. Lived to be 90 years old, radio broadcaster, ABC, and he always loved to tell you a story in history and then the rest of the story. So his book is called Our Lives, Our Fortunes, and Our Sacred Honor. And he researched, I'm sure he probably had one of his assistants doing a lot of this, but what happened to those 56 men that dared to sign the Declaration of Independence? Carter Braxton of Virginia, wealthy planter and trader, saw his ship swept from the seas. To pay his debts, he lost his home and all his properties and died in rags. Thomas Lynch Jr., who signed that pledge, was a third-generation rice grower, aristocrat, large plantation owner. And after he signed, his health failed. With his wife, he set out to France to regain his health. The ship never made it to France. Thomas McKean of Delaware was so harassed by the enemy that he was forced to move his family 5 times in 5 months. He served in Congress without pay, and his family in poverty and in hiding. By the way, he was the last one to sign the Declaration of Independence, and it was not till 1777. And they did the signing in 1776. So I guess he had to hide out and try to get there to sign it. Okay, others. Vandals looted the properties of Ellery and Gilmer and Hall and Gwinnett and Walton and Hayward and Rutledge and Middleton. And Thomas Nelson Jr. of Virginia raised $2 million on his own signature to provision our allies, the French fleet. After the war, he personally paid back the loans, wiped out his entire estate, and he is never reimbursed by his government. In the final battle for Yorktown, he, Nelson, urged George Washington to fire on his Nelson's own home, which is occupied by Lord Cornwallis. It was destroyed. He died bankrupt and was buried in an unmarked grave. Thomas Nelson Jr. had pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. The Hessians seized the homes of Francis Hopkinson in New Jersey. Francis Lewis had his home and everything destroyed. His wife in prison. She died within a few months. Richard Stockton, who signed the Declaration, who captured and mistreated, and his health broken to the extent that he died at 51. His estate was pillaged. Thomas Hayward Jr. was captured when Charleston fell. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside while she was dying. Their 13 children fled in all directions. His fields and gristmill were laid waste. For more than a year, he lived in forests and caves and returned home from the war to find his wife dead, his children gone, his properties gone. He died a few weeks later of exhaustion and a broken heart. Lewis Morris saw his lands destroyed, his family scattered. Philip Livingston died within a few months of the hardships of the war. John Hancock's history remembers best due to a quirk of fate rather than anything he stood for. That great sweeping signature attesting to his vanity towers over the others. One of the wealthiest men in New England, he stood outside Boston one terrible night of the war and said, "Burn Boston, though it makes John Hancock a beggar if the public good requires it." He too lived up to the pledge. He was a wine merchant, and he saw his warehouses burned to the ground. Of the 56, few were long to survive. 5 were captured by the British and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes from Rhode Island to Charleston sacked, looted, occupied by the enemy, or burned. 2 lost their sons in the army. 1 had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 died in the war from its hardships or from its more merciful bullets. I don't know what impression you had of the men who met that hot summer in Philadelphia, but I think it's important to remember this about them. They were not poor men or wild-eyed pirates. They were men of means, rich men, most of them who enjoyed much ease and luxury in their personal living. Not hungry men, prosperous men, wealthy landowners, substantially secure in their prosperity. But they considered liberty, and this is as much as I shall say of it, they had learned that liberty is so much more important than security, that they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors. And they fulfilled their pledge, and they paid the price. So I always liked this little book. Over the years I taught, when I gave the talk on the Declaration of Independence, I usually read this because it kind of brings a personal touch to what these men went through. Another point, July 4th, 1826 was the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And there's only 2 signers left alive. You notice a lot of them died early, died during the Revolution. And they are 2 former presidents. That would be John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Now, the world of the early beginnings of the United States, they had a lot of animosity towards each other in politics, etc. But after John Adams left the presidency, he opened up a line of communication with Jefferson. They would usually write on all sorts of topics to each other. So Jefferson is in pretty bad shape. Adams in his bed, deathbed. And Jefferson died that morning. And John Adams later in the day. And I guess when you're famous like this, people want to write down your last words. So his last words were, he didn't know that Jefferson is already dead, but he said, "Jefferson still survives." And Adams lived to be 91 years old. So it's kind of a remarkable story of the man that signed it, the debate, crucial document that we have, and I'm very proud that we have a Declaration of Independence. So you have a chance sometime, go to Philadelphia. It's great history. You can go visit Independence Hall. You'll see where the men met. If you see 1776, they have the exact replica of the tables and chairs and everything in that movie. And then across the way, you walk over to Constitutional Hall, and that's where the Constitution is put together. And they have a lot of interesting documents to look at too. And by the way, you might even walk over to the church cemetery nearby and look at Ben Franklin's grave. So, and maybe throw a few coins on it. but anyway, it's very meaningful to experience. So I hope this little talk was entertaining for you. And again, admire the people that put this document together, and they took a lot of courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much. That was very good. I think very educational for all of us. A good reminder of the beginnings of our country. So I do appreciate that. Very timely.
Okay.
Larry, I'm going to join in with you on what you're talking about, 1776. Just watch the camera a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I have not only the DVD, I also have it on tape, and I also have the record that came with the musical. Anybody who is interested in history and wants to see what he just talked about come alive, you can go to YouTube or anywhere else, and not YouTube, but it's like Amazon, because that's where I got mine. And you can get a copy of the 1776 musical. Now, it is a musical, and it's very entertaining, but it does pretty much factually follow what took place and what Larry talked about this morning. And it's a great piece of learning if you just want to go back and see how these people really were. I watch it every year, 4th of July. My son has a copy, and he watches it out in California, and then we call each other and talk about it. So hats off to you, Larry. You brought up a good one. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Before I get into the officer's report, I'm going to turn to Drake Petty as the state president. Thanks for joining us, Drake. If you have any words that you'd like to add this morning, I'd be more than willing to entertain now.
Okay, very good. Thank you for inviting me, and happy to be here and letting me speak right now. I got the Denton chapter meeting starts at 10 o'clock, so I got to zoom over to that one as soon as I'm done here. And then we're actually swearing in 4 new members for Denton in person under the big pecan tree on the town square in Denton at 1:30 this afternoon. So being able to zoom around the state and around DFW is a great convenience for your state president. It's a lot in gas. But I want to give you a couple updates on things. I apologize for not getting a lot of email traffic out. We've had some trouble with Dada email and getting some messages out to the state members. Apparently our hosting company where we run our Dada server out of changed some of the protocols and didn't bother to tell us. And it took a week or two for us to figure that out, and then another week or two to get it fixed. So I've got an email I'm crafting right now to send you a couple updates. We will not be having any live state meetings for the remainder of the year. The Board of Managers meeting in Frisco has been canceled, but we will be doing a virtual Board of Managers meeting on that same day. We will do the committee meetings the week before, like we did our virtual convention. And we will have our national officers that are running for officers appear Friday night. And we will do our endorsements on Saturday, have our memorial service like we typically do, and do our typical Board of Managers meeting. Just because it's Board of Managers means that everybody else is still welcome. So we'd like to have y'all dial in, and you'll see that announcement. Additionally, all our due statements will be in the mail this week. I did confirm with the printer, they've got them all printed. So starting tomorrow morning, they will start stuffing 3,562 envelopes with our due statements and get those to the post office later this week. Of course, some of y'all figured it out or found out, but we didn't get the word out because the email doesn't work. The regular due statements, the online version and the PayPal ones have been online since the first week in September. We have had several hundred go ahead and pay their dues electronically, which is a great thing. Print the due statements out and mail that one in. So we're getting those in as we speak. So right now you got 3 options to pay your dues. You can go on and you can pay by PayPal. You can download your due statement from the private website and mail it in, or the mail-in one with the card stock. It will be in your mailbox I would guess you'd be getting it sometime middle of next week. So please get those in before the end of the year. It causes a lot of grief when we have a lot of members that drag it out for 4 to 6 months. Keep in mind, if we don't have you on the books by January 31st, you do get dropped by National and you do have to get reinstated. So if your magazine is not showing up for you next March or April, that's probably because we didn't get your dues and get you marked as paid. So appreciate y'all getting your dues in on time. I'm happy to entertain any questions for 2 or 3 minutes. I don't want to take a lot of the meeting. Any questions? I guess everybody's on mute, so that's great. I like this. I'm going to give it back to you, Tom. And Tom, I'll see you between 12:30 and 12:45 at the same place.
I will be there, my friend. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. A little bit later in the meeting here, I'm actually going to do a little quick demonstration on the dues. I would tell you, I pay mine by PayPal because it's easy. It costs you another $1.75, but for me, it's just quick and off the books. And I paid mine, I guess it was yesterday, and I feel very good about it. But we'll talk about all of the other things when we get down to the dues section. Okay, let's start. Mark, can you give us a little update maybe on what to expect in November?
Okay, thank you, Tom. Actually, we have one of our own speaking next month, James Battles. He's got a little presentation he's going to make. James, I need to get with you and we need to finalize that. So.
You may remember James has spoken to us back in the days of face-to-face meetings from his Pilgrim heritage from the Mayflower. He came in complete Pilgrim Mayflower regalia and gave us a great talk at one of our meetings before. Jack Carpenter had to sign off again. I've told you he's had a heavy Saturday morning work schedule, but he completed his report for me back in March before the schools closed down for the pandemic. And, we're still waiting for some of the reopenings for the ROTC programs to not only come out again so we can award what we had in waiting, but also for the new ones coming on next year. Jerry Pinkerton, our great registrar, are you here with us?
Here, Mr. President.
Would you give the update that you gave me the other day to everybody?
In a summary, since our September meeting, we conducted 2 inductions. And I see Brandon on today. He was one of the 2, and his father, JD. We've had 3 applications approved at National. We have submitted 2 to the state registrar, so we're moving along. As I've reported in the past, the number now is that we have 20 members awaiting induction, and we have like 7 of those that we're awaiting for the information from the state secretary. One other thing that's happened is that Morgan and I have collaborated on a guide for completing this SAR application. And we've worked on that to send out to new applicants. Rather than the 51-page book, we figured nobody read the 51-page application manual, so they might read this 4-page guide that will get them through the basic stuff that needs to be done to get their applications together. We have been finalizing an induction process, and we're just about at the point where we're ready to commit to starting this. We have, like I said, we have 20 members awaiting induction. We've come up with a Zoom process, and we have come up with a process that we can use in probably within a park somewhere to have a little bit of ceremony around the induction process in this COVID pandemic sequestered environment. Any questions?
Great. No, well done. I appreciate all the work that you and Mark have done together.
Thank you.
All righty. Our historian, Mr. Brent.
Hello.
Before you talk about all of the collecting and collating you've been doing, give us a little bit of the background on the opening that we viewed this morning on the Pledge of Allegiance, where you found it and what we're going to do with it.
Okay. This is the opening on a cable TV channel called RFD TV. Not something that people might normally seek out. It has a lot of agricultural news, but you might find it buried in your cable listing. You might actually have it and not know. So this is a media holding company that has RFD TV and something called the Cowboy Channel, which is not associated with the Dallas Cowboys at all, more like real cowboys. And they have studios over in Fort Worth, and then the RFD TV studios are over in Nashville. The founder of the group is Patrick Gotch. Seems to be a patriotic man by putting these beautiful videos of the pledge and the flag on his stations. So we've made contact with them about, I've discussed with Tom and Mark about the possibility of a flag certificate from our chapter for this gentleman or his entire crew. And so we're working on that contact, and it looks like they would be very proud to receive the certificate from our chapter. So that's something we're working on. It's not set up yet, but we're working on it.
The thing I liked about it when you first broached the subject and brought it forward was the fact that they may actually have put us on TV.
Yeah, I guess it would be possible, you know, maybe so. We could go national.
Exactly. Okay, any attention is good attention. There you go.
Yes.
All right. I don't know that we have Nick Harper on here for the Treasury's report, but I will tell you that he has filed it again as usual, and we have a copy of the Treasury's report as of today. And he submitted, which I'll be putting up maybe next meeting, the proposed budget for next year, just so everybody can take a look at it. Again, I'm not a little hesitant to put stuff out on the airwaves, but I think we can find a way to get a copy to everybody to look at. Okay, now, where is my Bill Watts? Can you tell us what is going on and what has gone on with the color guard?
Mark, you gonna put up pictures? Mark.
He's working on it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Go through that.
Okay. This picture is a picture of us at Waxahachie at the DAR meeting. Our color guard presented the colors. Next slide.
Okay.
This is us walking in with our mask on. We were very politically correct. This is a picture of the color guard at the Martin's new member presentation. We inducted 2 new members that day, J.D. Martin and Brandon. Next slide. And this is a picture of 4 of us at Sherman. We worked with the Edmund Terrell SAR in presenting medals to police and fire and EMT and life-saving. This was on October 1st. This is Tom trying to get his horse started.
Actually, John Greer's was there, and John's car wouldn't start, so we had to do a little jump cable. And you can imagine watching from the town hall there. It's right on the main drag. And there's people driving by, and they're seeing 5 or 6 men in colonial garb jumping 2 cars. It was a little distracting, I'm sure.
Well, when you have 100 horses, you got to charge them up somehow.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, on October 21st, we have an upcoming flag certificate presentation at the HOA in Queens Ferry in Dallas. I want to remind everyone, please donate or buy a wreath for your favorite veteran for Wreaths Across America. The purchasing has already begun. All you do is go online to wreathsacrossamerica.com. It's very easy. It's $15 to buy a wreath for your favorite veteran. You can send this to any cemetery in the United States. There's little boxes where you can do that. I suggest you think of a cemetery around where you live and donate there if you like. We have participated as a Dallas chapter in the, what is it called? The DFW Cemetery, National Cemetery. I personally have been working with the local cemetery here in Rockwall, and it's a very wonderful thing to do. You can buy 3 wreaths for $60. So if you like to go that route, I usually buy the 3 wreaths for $60. Next week, early voting starts. I want everybody to make sure you get out and vote. The future of our country depends on this next election. Yep. I also want to encourage anyone who's interested in joining the Color Guard, get in contact with me. We have, I'm wearing a hunter's frock, and if you'd like to get in on something with the SAR, come to our next Color Guard activity, wear khaki pants or whatever, and a t-shirt, and I'll give you this. I've got 2 of these hunter frocks, and I've got 2 hats. So if you'd like to wear a hunter's frock and a hat and participate, let me know, and I'll bring in the next Color Guard activity we have. But we'd like to expand our Color Guard, so please think about joining. Oh, and right now, Samson has a sale going on. So you might want to, if you're interested in buying some stuff, Samson Historical Clothing is having a sale. And I think that's about all I've got.
All right, Bill, good report. Appreciate it. In conjunction with that, I mentioned earlier that I spent some time with Robert Kittrell and Kay earlier last week. Robert had accumulated over the time when he was involved with the Color Guard 4 separate flags and 2 muskets that belong to the chapter. And he says, hey, I got them at my house. What do I do with them? So I went over there and got them. And we now have 2 more muskets. They're, they don't fire, but they're, facsimile type. We also have 4 new flags. We have a Washington headquarter flag, the blue with the white stars. We've got a 13 colony star flag. We've got a 15 state flag. And we also have the, I forget what you call it, but it's the, anyhow, we've got 4 new flags that we didn't have before. So we just added those to the collection of the 13 colonies plus our 4 presentation flags that we have and 2 muskets. So anybody who's interested in the Color Guard, get in touch with Bill, get in touch with me, and we'll get you going. For old business, it's not really old, but I want to bring it up. This is the time of year we started looking for people who want to help the chapter, not only as chairman of committees, but also for possible serving in the position of an officership. And we would like anyone who would be interested in being an officer to please entertain that. I would tell them, if you have an interest in being an officer, send me a note, regardless of which position you'd be interested in, president, the 2 vice presidents, the historian, all the other ones. Do me a favor and just send me a note at tvf1776@gmail.com. And then we can have a dialogue, because we're developing a slate of people who are interested, and we're going to submit that in our November meeting and say, here's the people who have stepped forward. Then we will vote on that slate in December, and then there'll be an installation at our January meeting. Now, just a few minutes more about what Drake talked about on the dues. We spent a great amount of time in the spring chasing some dues payments that apparently didn't get registered or whatever. And I think they've cleaned that up because we now have a new state treasurer in David Kinsey, who most of you know, who is the president of the McKinney Chapter. And he's really gone in and cleaned up what was really a process that was falling behind. In any event, Mark, you've got a couple slides that I was going to ask you to show.
He's muted.
I hope that doesn't hurt his hearing. Okay. If you take a look, this is the dues invoice statement that you can get online by going into the state society. And when you go in there and you go to the private site, you'll get, at the bottom, you'll see dues statements under the membership tab at the top. You go to the bottom of the membership tab, you will see dues statements. It's the last drop-down box, and this is what comes up. In that box, you just enter your number. And when you enter that number, your national number, you're going to get a picture of us doing a battery jump, but that's okay. What you'll get is you'll get to see the online copy of your dues statement. Now, this is the same paper copy that you're going, there you go. This is mine. And you're going to receive this in the mail. So you can either go online and pay it, or you can wait for to get your statement in the mail. I paid mine by going just to the public website, not even going into the private side. I went to the public website. At the bottom of the page, it says dues. And when you open that up, you get a long list of things that you can contribute to in addition to your dues. I found that for me, it was the easiest because I used PayPal. I went on there, I paid an extra $1.75 for the handling, and it's done. If you don't want to use PayPal, you've got the two other ways. You can go in, print off your own statement and mail it in, or you can wait until you get that same statement in the mail. Go ahead and send your check and then send it in an envelope. There's three ways to pay your dues. We want to make sure that we get that taken care of. Okay. I think that's it, Mark. I think we've covered just about everything. Nice to see some of the people we haven't seen before. Mike Rodriguez, good to see you, former chapter president. Glad to see you on board. Anything for the cause? Anybody want questions or anything anybody want to bring up?
I'd like to add.
Go ahead, Mike. Unmute, Mike.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a premature or not, but the annual Veterans Day Parade, is Dallas even having that this year?
It's been canceled.
Canceled. Yep.
It's been canceled.
Yep.
But thank you. I know you were always active in that. Okay, with that, gentlemen.
Tom?
Yes.
Brandon had a question.
Go, Brandon, go.
Hey, so JD's neighbor, David, took some photos from the ceremony and uploaded them to a Google Drive. Not sure if JD had provided those to any of y'all, but they're really great photos.
We'd love to have them because our historian catalogs that. And not only do we try and get it in the national magazine, but also for our annual scrapbook. So yeah, if we can get those, that'd be great.
Yeah, they're nice quality. So I will put the link into the email that I received from you. I'll just reply all. And so that whoever's on the email chain will have a direct link to the photographs.
I would suggest you don't do that because when I send those things out, I've got a digest of 40 to 50 people that it goes to. Just send it to me at TVF 1776 and I'll get it distributed.
All right, that'll work.
Great. Thank you, Brandon.
Yes.
Hey, Tom?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Mary sent you the picture of me promoting Strauss on your
email, so you should have it hopefully.
Yeah, when I open up after this meeting, I'll send you a note when I got it.
Okay, and the reason he's got his right hand is all bandaged up because he broke his hand jumping out of airplanes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. How lucky for him. Of course, I never understood it, never being in that part of the service. I never understood jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, but that's a different story, you know.
Great time.
All right. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. I think we did really well this morning. Mr. Bill Watts, would you give us the closing prayer, and then we'll go to some other issues.
Our Father, thank you for blessing this meeting. We really appreciate all that you do for us. Bless all of us this coming week and guide us in whatever we do. Bless our country and its leadership. Be with all of us as we go about our lives this coming week. And thank you so much for guiding our lives. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Bill. Now, Mark, I believe you have been recording random numbers of people that tuned in, and you may have a number for a winner of our door prize.
Well, I need somebody to call it out. We have 24 on the call today. So if we could maybe have...
How about Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon, if you could call out a number between 1 and 24.
And you can unmute to do it.
6.
6. All right, let me look at my list here. Joseph Sloniker.
Joseph Sloniker. Oh, there's a name from the past. My man. Yes. Mm-hmm. For those of you who may not have met Joseph because of your newness here, Joe was last year's winner of the Golden Sledgehammer Award, which we award annually to the supposed hardest working person in the chapter. And he was supposed to get it a couple years in a row, but he got outvoted and he didn't even know about it. So we were able to get it to him last year. Joseph, I have a bottle of wine and another for your collection of chapter hats. So you and I need to figure out a time where I can meet you somewhere and drop off your wine and your hat. And if you want, if you've got time, I'd certainly go to lunch. All right, I'll give you a call. Very good. I still have 2 other winners from the past. William Johnson, I forget who the other one was, but I've still got 2 bottles of wine and 2 hats for them as soon as I can find a way to get in touch with them.
Was that John Tompkins the other
John
one?
Tompkins is one, and William Johnson is the other one. Yes, that's it. Do you want me to give you the Tompkins one? Because you mentioned that earlier.
Please do, because we're going to have lunch together in a few days.
All right, why don't I try and get that over to you? I've got to go to a district meeting over in Sunnyvale on Monday. Maybe I can drop it off Monday afternoon. Are you going to be around?
Yeah, there's no rush. I see John almost daily.
Okay. Well, I'll drop it off, even if I have to just give it to somebody at the desk with your name on it.
That's good.
Okay, good. I'll get that done. All right. If you would, Mark, put up the SAR recessional. Would you follow me, gentlemen? Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations
to our forefathers
who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, independence, and a nation of free men. Before I adjourn, I want to wish Mark Harrison and his good wife Linda a nice trip. They're going away for a couple weeks, and you're going to be driving right into a storm, so drive careful and be safe. We'll see you back in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. I'll see you next month. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, I am stopping the recording.
Okay.